in the rolling green vale of Belvoir, Leicestershire. During the early 17th century, whispers of dark magic and devilry haunted the hamlets and fields surrounding the grand Belvoir Castle. This was a time when fear of witchcraft gripped England, fueled by King James I's obsession with rooting out sorcery. As outlined in his treatise, the castle, perched atop a hill like a stone sentinel, was home to Francis Manners, the 6th Earl of Rutland, and his wife, Cecily. Their household was a bustling microcosm of nobility, servants, and secrets that would soon unravel into one of the most infamous witch trials in the Midlands. At the heart of this tale was Joan Flower, a woman whose name became synonymous with malevolence. Joan was no stranger to the villagers of Bottisford, the nearby settlement where she lived in a cramped, thatch-roofed cottage. Her sharp tongue and piercing gaze unnerved those who crossed her path. She claimed to wield powers granted by the devil himself, boasting of her familiar a sleek black cat named Ruttikin, whose yellow eyes seemed to glimmer with unnatural cunning. Joan's daughters, Margaret and Philippa, worked as servants in Belvoir Castle, scrubbing floors and tending to the needs of the Earl's household. Margaret, the quieter of the two, was diligent but unremarkable. Philippa, bolder and more defiant, often drew attention with her sly remarks. Trouble began when Margaret was dismissed from the castle. The Earl's steward accused her of pilfering perhaps a silver spoon or a scrap of fine cloth, though the details were murky. Joan, enraged by her daughter's disgrace, stormed through Bottisford, cursing the Earl's name. Villagers later swore they saw Ruttikin darting through the shadows as Joan muttered incantations under the moonlight. Her fury was not merely personal. It was a challenge to the social order, a servant's rebellion against the untouchable nobility. Joan's boasts of magic grew louder, and soon whispers of her powers reached the castle itself. By 1613, Joan had gathered a small circle of women, each drawn to her charisma or desperation. Anne Baker, a healer whose remedies bordered on the occult. Joan Willamette, a cunning woman known for her herbal brews. Ellen Green, a widow with a reputation for eerie foresight. And to others whose names have faded. Together, they formed what villagers would later call a coven, meeting in the shadow of Blackberry Hill, a lonely rise where gnarled oaks twisted against the sky. There, under the cover of night, they wove spells and chanted rhymes, their voices mingling with the wind. Joan's wrath focused on the Earl's family. The Manners were blessed with wealth and status, but their lineage hung by a fragile thread. Their 2 young sons, Henry, Lord Roos, and Francis, were the hope of the Rutland dynasty. Joan and her companions devised a plan as cruel as it was cunning. They acquired a glove belonging to little Henry, barely more than a toddler. In a ritual that chilled even her fellow witches, Joan pricked the glove with pins, each jab accompanied by a whispered curse. They boiled it in a cauldron of water mixed with herbs and blood, chanting for the boy's life to ebb away. Within a week, Henry fell ill, his small body racked with fever. Servants reported hearing strange noises in the castle, scratching in the walls, a cat's yowl in the dead of night. Henry died before the month's end, his death blamed on natural causes by physicians, but whispered to be sorcery by the fearful. The Earl and Countess were devastated, but Joan's vengeance was not sated. The witches turned their malice on Francis, the younger son. This time, their spell was subtler, meant to linger. Francis sickened, recovered briefly, then withered over months. By 1618, he too was dead. The castle, once alive with the laughter of children, grew silent. Suspicion festered among the servants, and rumours of Joan's curses reached the Earl. The Countess, Cecily, a pious woman, began to wonder if the tragedies were divine punishment or something darker. In the winter of 1618, the authorities acted. Joan, her daughters, and their 3 companions were arrested and dragged to Lincoln for trial. The courtroom was a cauldron of fear and fascination, packed with villagers eager to hear tales of witchcraft. Under interrogation, likely laced with threats of torture, the women confessed to horrors that sent gasps through the crowd. They admitted to killing the boys with enchantments, claiming they had summoned spirits to sicken the children. Anne Baker spoke of visions in which Rutteken carried messages to the devil. Joan Willamot described brewing potions that turned the Earl and Countess sterile, ensuring no more heirs would threaten Joan's revenge. Ellen Green recounted their gatherings on Blackberry Hill, where they danced in a circle and offered tributes to unseen forces. The most sensational testimony came from Philippa, who claimed Rutteken had leaped onto her mother's shoulder during rituals, hissing instructions from the underworld. Margaret, trembling, confessed to stealing the glove that doomed Henry. The confessions painted a vivid picture of a coven bound by malice, their rituals a grotesque mockery of Christian rites. Yet the evidence was not without contradictions. Some villagers testified that Joan had once been a healer. Her magic, merely herbs and prayers, twisted into something sinister by fear. Others swore they saw nothing unusual on Blackberry Hill, only shadows and superstition. Joan Flower, defiant to the last, stood apart. As the trial neared its climax, she recanted her confession. "I am no murderer," she declared, her voice cutting through the courtroom. To prove her innocence, she demanded bread and butter, a folk test for truth. "May this choke me if I am guilty." The crowd held its breath as she took a bite. Moments later, she clutched her throat, her face contorting in agony. She collapsed, dead, as murmurs of divine judgment rippled through the room. To the superstitious, it was proof of her guilt. To skeptics, perhaps a heart seized by fear or poison slipped by an enemy. The remaining witches faced no such reprieve. Margaret, Philippa, Anne Baker, Joan Willamot, and Ellen Green were found guilty. On March 11, 1618, they were hanged at Lincoln, their bodies left swaying as a warning to others. Belvoir Castle, scarred by loss, stood as a silent witness to the tragedy. The Earl and Countess never fully recovered. Their daughter, Catherine, became their sole heir, carrying the weight of a cursed legacy. In the years that followed, the tale of the Belvoir witches grew into legend. Villagers avoided Blackberry Hill, claiming Rutteken's spirit still prowled its slopes. Pamphlets circulated, embellishing the witches' deeds with lurid details, feeding the era's witch-hunting frenzy. Historians later questioned the confessions, noting the era's paranoia and the pressure on accused women to admit guilt. Were Joan and her companions truly sorceresses, or victims of a society eager to blame misfortune on the marginalized? The truth, like the shadows on Blackberry Hill, remains elusive, lost to the mists of time. Many thanks for treading this tale's dark path. If its chill gripped you, like, follow, subscribe, and comment below.